Hello, and thank you for watching The Broker's Blueprint. I'm Andrew Goodman, the owner and broker here at Goodman Realtors, and today I want to explain to you what an appraisal is and go through an appraisal contingency. An appraisal is an unbiased third party's opinion of the market value of a home. Typically, when a buyer obtains a mortgage, the lender is going to require an appraisal done. This is done to protect the lender's interest and loan on that property. So let's go through a little example with you. Let's say that the contract sales price was $500,000 and an appraisal came in at $450,000. Now that's a big gap. Typically that doesn't happen, but let's just use that for example purposes. If there's a $50,000 reduction in cost from the contract sales price to the appraised value, the lender will only lend on the appraised value. So let's say that you're putting 10% down on the $500,000 contract sales price. Well, again, it'll be changed and be 10% down on the $450,000 sales price, which means that's $45,000 down payment plus the $50,000 deduction from the contract sales price. So that's $95,000 the buyer would have to come up with. Well, no buyer's going to want to do that, which is why the buyer had an appraisal contingency. Now, if the same scenario happened and you had an appraisal contingency, there's four things that could happen. One, the seller can reduce the sales price to the $450,000, okay? And the theory behind that is that if it appraised for $450,000 with this appraiser, that if you cancel that contract and another appraiser had to come in for a new buyer, that the theory would be that the same appraisal would come back with $450,000. Now, if that's the case, the seller's typically going to reduce the sales price because you might as well move forward. At this point, the home inspection's been done and things like that, so you don't have to go back through all that. The second option is for the buyer to come up with the cash, which would mean $95,000, $50,000 plus the $45,000 down payment, which doesn't make any buyer happy. The third option is to come up somewhere in the middle. So let's say if the seller came down $25,000, the buyer came up $25,000, and you come to some sort of agreement. Or four, and the big reason for the contingency is to protect your deposit, and the contract will become null and void if there's no agreement made. Now, if the appraisal comes in higher than the contract sales price, the buyer got a deal, nothing happens from a contractual standpoint, and everyone moves forward with the transaction. Same thing goes with the appraisal if it comes in at the contract sales price. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to ask. And as always, for everything real estate, get Goodman.